Hey there, Dancy Face. It's Hank, and I'm really excited to have new information about the Walt Disney logo. I know. Okay, so I made that video. I looked mostly at video footage to find where the loopy D may have been. If you haven't seen it, I made a video on Hank's channel that I'm talking about right now. I mean, on Vlogbrothers that I'm talking about right now. And I was trying to figure out the origin of that weird D, Disney's weird D. That, yeah, lots of people made jokes. I didn't. They did. I left that up to the comments that we all know and love today, but didn't appear as an official logo for Disney Pictures until 1985. But it did appear in a couple of places before 1985. I found it in the box art of a VHS tape, and this was one of the very first VHS tapes that Disney ever made. And then later, before it was the logo of Disney Pictures, it was the logo for Disney Home Video. That was its transition into becoming a logo. But I thought that logo was designed in the 1980s. Now, it was not. Before we get there, though, there's so much stuff that I couldn't fit in that video that I loved. Like, there's a guy who took credit for designing that logo who turned out to be a felon, for fraud. And so I didn't believe him when I did a research on him. Disney, the name Disney, is what they call a habitational name. So it tells you where the person who has it is from, or the person who had it back when the first person had that name. It means from Isny, which is in France, I believe. What else did I find out? There's a bunch. I had a whole thing that I wanted to talk about. The new Disney Pictures intro with the castle and the stars and the fireworks and the river and the fields and there's a steam train and a pirate ship and cars and I still want to talk about that, so I'm not going to talk about it right now. Also, there's this great anecdote. Ub Iwerks, who was the first guy, I know I'm wait for the actual information, but Ub Iwerks was the guy who co-created Mickey Mouse with Disney, and he told the story of the first time he ever saw Walt Disney. He walked in, Disney was 17 years old, this was 1922, and Disney is practicing variations on his signature because this guy, I respect it to some extent, but I also am like, this level of perfectionism, like, it's so clear in what he's trying to do. Like, it's almost like he's trying to find the perfect version of himself, and he just can't do it. His whole life, he's trying to find that. And he's just adapting on this signature over and over again in the same way that he's trying to make himself be perfect. And there is just no perfect version. I don't know. It's very resonant to me, but I couldn't fit it in the video. But I thought that this logo first appeared and was designed in the 80s, and oh, goodness gracious, it wasn't. It appeared a bunch of times. It appeared in the 70s, in the 60s, and in the 50s. And the first appearance that the internet could find. So a lot of people were helping me do research about this after my video came out. People were like going and taking pictures of their old Disney comics and then doing online research. And yeah, so the very first appearance was a 1957 Mickey Mouse Club vinyl, a record, and and then there was the World's Fair. The Disney World's Fair thing that happened, I think, 1964. I think it was the 64 World's Fair. 80 dolls yelling small world after all, which is a They Might Be Giants lyric. And they used that logo there, and it just appears sporadically. In the same way that Disney, it seems like they had a bunch of them. They had certain logos that they would use in different situations, but no consistent logos. No consistent logo. If you're confused the difference between a logo and a logotype is just the words of the logo. I don't know how to give you a good example of that. Let's see if I can find a logotype versus a logo around me. Well, Coca-Cola's logo is a logotype, so that doesn't help. There's got to be a logo and a logotype around here somewhere. Here we go. That's an easy one. VidCon. So here's your VidCon logo and logotype. This part down here, that's the logotype. This is the logo. Together they are the logo. But this is The logo type is just the type part of it. So they're using tons of different logo types. There's so many of them, and I'd love to like catalog and identify all of them. I don't have the time to do it right now, but occasionally, like in the type department, this Disney logo was just sitting around and they'd grab it and use it on stuff. And why? Because it fit best for that situation. I don't know if they had some internal, like probably not. Like this was before that level of control in among graphics departments where there was a lot of corporate control of that. Probably they just grab whatever felt right. And some of them were signatures, some of them were just fonts. And it's fascinating to me. And also that this was the one that got picked. Like of all the different logos that Disney, the company, had access to, they were like, let's pick one. And they picked, I don't know, the one that became so iconic and weird and amazing. But because this was designed in the 1950s, probably, it's very unlikely that we will ever find out who designed this logo, because by this point that person is almost definitely dead, and probably everybody who was around when that design happened is probably dead. And then additionally, like back in the 1950s, it wasn't really considered like your personal input. It was America in the 50s. It was a different time, a different place. People weren't taking credit for their creative endeavors in the same way. I don't think we'll ever know because it's so old. It goes back so far, and it goes back to a time when people didn't take as much credit for the creative work that they did. So, or like we didn't tell those stories about people. But fascinating, cool, weird. Thank you to everybody, Neil Cesariga, who I think uncovered the oldest one, which was from internet research, but also everybody who photographed their old comic books and showed that indeed this logo has been around for a very long time. And so here's my correction. Correction issued. I don't feel particularly bad about this because I think it was a process, and I think that like it's interesting to me that this hasn't been discussed that much, and so I'm happy, like very glad to have been part of the process of getting a better understanding of where this iconic and so influential and so sort of deeply ingrained into so many people image came from. It occurs to me now that like every single book spine has both a logo and a logo type on it.